Thank you for inviting me to be a mystery reader on the book The World According to Humphrey. I'm Lanna Denison. Chapter 2, Night Life. For the rest of the day, I felt sad. You look sad, Humphrey, Golden Miranda said when she was cleaning my cage right before lunch. According to the chart Miss Mac had left, it was her turn to take care of me. Thank goodness. Miranda was the best cage cleaner and never said yuck. She put on her throwaway gloves, then cleaned my potty corner, changed my bedding, gave me fresh water, and finally, oh joy, gave me fresh grain, some lettuce, and mealworms. This will make you happy, she said as she slipped me the special treat she brought from home, cauliflower. Naturally, Miranda had good taste. I promptly saved it in my cheek until I could store it in my sleeping house. Hamsters like to stash food for the future. After my cage was taken care of, I felt well enough to observe Miss Brisbane more carefully. Now, Miss Mac was tall, wore bright blouses, short skirts, and high heels. She wore bracelets that jingled. She spoke in a loud voice and waved her arms and walked all around the room when she taught. Miss Brisbane, on the other hand, was short with gray hair. She wore dark clothes and flat shoes, and she didn't jingle-jangle at all. She spoke in a voice just loud enough to hear and sat at her desk or stood at the chalkboard when she taught. No wonder I was feeling drowsy after lunch. All that nice food and all that soft talking. Is that all this hamster does? Sleep? She asked at one point when she glanced over at my cage. Well, he's turnal, replied Raise Your Hand Heidi Hopper. Raise your hand, Heidi, said Miss Brisbane. What is turnal? You know, turnal. He sleeps during the day, said Heidi. I was wide awake now. Nocturnal, I squeaked. Hamsters are nocturnal. Oh, you mean nocturnal, said Miss Brisbane, almost as if she understood me. She turned and wrote the word on the board. Can anyone else name an animal that is nocturnal? Owl, said Heidi. Raise your hand, Heidi, said Miss Brisbane. But that is correct. An owl is nocturnal. Anyone else? A voice shouted out, My dad. Miss Brisbane looked around. Who said that? He did, AJ. Garth Tugwell pointed at AJ. Both boys sat at the table nearest to my cage. What about your dad? Miss Brisbane asked. AJ squirmed in his seat. Well, my mom always says that my dad is nocturnal 'cause he stays up so late watching TV. Stop giggling, Gail, and a few other students snickered. Miss Brisbane did not crack a smile. Her use of the word is correct, she said, though technically humans are not nocturnal. Any others? Eventually, the class came up with more names of nocturnal animals like bats and coyotes and possums. And Miss Brisbane said that the class would be learning more about animal habitats later in the year. If she had just looked at me, she could learn a lot. But I noticed for the rest of the day that Miss Brisbane stayed far away from my cage, as if I had a disease or something. She read a mighty fine story to us in the afternoon, though. In fact, I could not get back to my nap afterward. It was about a scary house and these scratching noises and a ghost. Thump, thump, thump. The ghost came down the hall. Oh, I had shivers and quivers. I have to say, Miss Brisbane knows how to read a story. Her voice changed and her eyes got wide, and I forgot about her gray hair and her dark suit. To squeak the truth, My fur was on end. The story had a funny ending because it turned out the ghost was not a ghost at all. It was an owl. At the end of the story, everybody laughed, even Miss Brisbane. I was beginning to think that life with this new teacher would not be so bad. But I changed my mind when the bell rang at the end of the day and all my classmates raced out of the room, leaving me alone with her. She erased the chalkboard and gathered up her papers. I could tell that we'd be going home soon. Suddenly, I began to worry. What if Miss Brisbane lived in a scary house with spooky noises and a thumping ghost? Or even worse, what if Miss Brisbane had a scary pet like a dog? My mind was racing as fast as I was spinning my wheel as she finally approached and looked down at me, frowning. "Well, you're on your own now," she said. With that, she closed the blinds and she walked away. But I heard her mutter, "Rodent," under her breath. She left the classroom and closed the door. She left me alone, all alone in room 26, and I had never been alone before. As the room grew slowly dark and quieter, I thought back to the happy times at Miss Mack's apartment. There were always cheery lights on and music and telephone talking. And oh dear, during the day I never noticed how the clock on the wall ticked off the seconds one by one very loudly. Tick, tick, tick. I was feeling sick, sick, sick. I wondered if there were any owls around room 26 or any ghosts. I tried to pass the time by writing in my pocketbook about pet-o-rama and my days at Miss Mack's apartment. Writing took my mind off my jittery nerves, but eventually my writing paw began to ache and I had to stop my scratchings. If only I could roam free as if I had at Miss Mack's apartment. Then I remembered that the lock does not lock. It only took a few seconds to jiggle that door open. I skittered across the table, then grasping the top of the table leg tightly, I closed my eyes and slid to the ground. Ah, freedom. I dashed along that shiny floor. I darted between the tables and the chairs. I stopped to nibble a peanut underneath, stopped giggling Gail's chair. It tasted delicious and made the coolest crushing sound. I chewed and chomped and gnawed and nibbled, and when I stopped, I heard the sound. Thump, thump, thump. Just like the story Miss Brisbane had read to us. Thump, thump, thump. Closer and closer down the hall, coming towards room 26. Then rattle scratch, thump, thump, thump. Suddenly I longed for my protective comfort of my cage. I dropped what was left of the peanut and scampered back. But when I got to the table, I thought a terrible thought. I had slid down the smooth, shiny leg, straight down. But how was I going to climb back up? I flung myself against the table leg, grabbed on, and pushed up, up, up. But I only had made a little progress when I began to slide. Down, down, down. I was right back where I started. The rattling got louder. The sounds weren't coming towards room 26 anymore. They were coming in room 26. Just then, I noticed a long cord running down the blinds. Without hesitation, I leaped up and grabbed the cord and began swinging back and forth. My stomach churned, and I wished that I had never touched that peanut. But with each swing, I got a little higher off the ground. As soon as I saw the edge of the tablet, I closed my eyes and I dived toward it. Whoosh! I slid across the table and scampered into the cage. As I pulled the door behind me, I was suddenly blinded by light. The something had turned on the lights and was clumping across the floor. It was huge and heavy and coming right towards me. Just then my eyes adjusted to the light and I saw the thing. It was a man. "Well, well, what do we have here? A new student," a voice boomed. The man was smiling down at me. My, that was a lovely piece of fur across his upper lip. A nice black mustache. He bent over to peer down at me. "I'm Aldo Amato, and who are you?" "I'm Humphrey, and you scared me half to death," I told him. But as always, all that came out was squeak, squeak, squeak. Aldo squinted at the sign on my cage. "Oh, you're Humphrey. Hope I didn't scare you half to death," he said with a laugh. "I've just come in to clean the room. I come in every night." "But where have you been?" he said. He rolled up a big cart with a bucket and mops and brooms and all kinds of bottles and rags on it. "Oh, that's right," he replied, as if he were having a real conversation. "Miss Brisbane came back today. She's a good teacher, you know, Humphrey. She's been teaching here a long time. Wish I had had a good teacher like her. Say, do you like music, Humphrey?" Squeak, squeak, squeak. I tried to tell him I love music almost as much as I love Miss Mac. Suddenly a song came blasting out of the radio on his cart, and he set off to work, sweeping, mopping, moving desk, and dusting. But Aldo Amato didn't just dust and mop. He spun and he swayed. He hopped and he leaped. He twisted and he twirled. "How do you like the floor show?" Aldo asked me as he grasped the mop like a dancer holding his partner. "Get it? It's a floor show, 'cause I'm cleaning the floor." Then Aldo roared the biggest roar of a laugh I'd ever heard. His big mustache shook so much I thought it might fall off. "You like that? I'll show you real talent, Humphrey." Aldo Amato picked up his broom and very carefully stood it up with the very tip balancing on one outstretched finger. It wiggled from side to side, but Aldo moved with the broom and managed to keep it balanced straight in the air for an amazingly long time. When he was finished, he bowed deeply and said, "What do you think? I'm going to join the circus." And then he roared again. Then Aldo wiped his forehead with a big bandana and sat down at the table where AJ usually sits. "You know what, Humphrey? You are such good company. I think that I will take you to my dinner break with you. Do you mind?" "Please, please, please," I squeaked. Aldo pulled up his chair right next to my cage. "Hey, you're a handsome guy like me. Here, a little bit of green won't hurt you, will it?" He tore off a piece of lettuce from his sandwich and pushed it through the bars. Of course, I hid it in my cheek pouch. Aldo chuckled. "Good for you, Humphrey. Always save something for a rainy day." The two of us shared a very pleasant meal as Aldo told me about how he used to have a regular job where he worked during the day. But then his company closed down and he could not find a job for a very long time. He could not even pay the rent when he was lucky enough to get hired by the Longfellow School. He was glad to get the job, but it's lonely working at night because all of his friends work during the day. They can never get together like they used to. I tried to squeak to him about all the creatures like me that are also nocturnal, and Aldo listened. "I know you're trying to tell me something, Humphrey, but I cannot tell what it is. Maybe you're just saying I'm not alone after all." Squeak. He understood. Aldo stood up and threw his trash into the little plastic bag on his cart. "Well, I've got other rooms to clean, my friend, but I will be back tomorrow night. Maybe I will take my dinner break with you again. Aldo pushed his cart towards the door and reached for the light switch. No, 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 I squeaked, dreading the thought of being plunged into the darkness again. Aldo stopped. I hate to leave you in the dark, but if I don't turn off the lights, I could lose my job. He clomped back across the floor to the window. Tell you what, I'll leave the blinds open for a little while. There's a nice light right outside of your window. After he turned off the lights and left, I chomped on that lettuce I'd saved and basked in the warm glow of the streetlight and my new friendship with Aldo. Tip number 2. Hamsters are not picky about their food and eat very little. Make sure to feed your pet a wide variety of tasty foods.